it's from the advanced manual, and the timeline is 5 to 7 minutes. Charles has done a lot of traveling with his photography, and that piques my interest because I love photography as well. And most of the time when Charles travels on these trips, things go really well. But this morning, find out what happened when one of Charles' photography trips did not go well. Please welcome Charles Braswell.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters in attendance, and honored guests. If we have any, I might be the only guest today. Have you ever had an experience in life that made you feel like you were living out the role in a movie that you had recently watched? I have, and let me tell you about it. This was in the winter. I'm a professional photographer. I was traveling to the North Carolina coast, to the Outer Banks, to photograph the North Carolina's famous lighthouse, Cape Hatteras Lighthouse, which is on the cover of this book. I was taking a friend with me. We were traveling together. A friend was Alan Watson from Taylorsville, my hometown. His wife didn't much want him to go, but we kind of said that we would make the trip short and try to get back quickly. We headed to the Outer Banks, got within 6 miles probably of the lighthouse, and the car just suddenly stopped. Just dead in the road. We pulled over, tried to decide what was wrong. I used the option to call a friend. I called up a friend and asked what might be wrong, and he told me some things to look for. He said to look under the hood and look at the distributor cap, open it up, and Tom, take a look in there, and if the rotor's not turning, then the timing belt has broken. So we determined that's what the problem was. Now that's not too bad, but on the North Carolina Outer Banks, it's hard to get work like that done. So, and we knew we had a deadline to get back. My daughter's birthday, 14th birthday, was coming up on Monday. This was on Friday, and I had to get back as well. So I started calling around to see what I could get arranged to try to get this car fixed and get back home. I called to see about renting a car. You can rent a car on the North Carolina Outer Banks, but you can't turn it in somewhere else at the Charlotte airport, for instance. You have to turn it back in where you rented it at. So that wasn't working. I thought, what am I going to do? I've got to do something to get back home. I called around, there was no train service down in that way. You couldn't get on a train. The closest bus service was at Elizabeth City, which was several miles away. Didn't have a way of getting there. So I called around, found a mechanic. Joe was his name. Joe told me that he could fix the car, but he couldn't do it until the following week. On Monday he would start it. So we were still kind of in a strafe. So thinking what we could do, talked some more to the mechanic, and the mechanic told me that he was going home to his parents that lived in Virginia over the weekend, and he said, I'll be glad to let you ride along with me in my car to Newport News, Virginia, where you can rent a car and drive home. So this sounded great. I was elated. Alan went out and took a few pictures of the lighthouse. I was trying to arrange everything to get back home. The mechanic picked us up. We started the little trip, but he said there's one hitch. You have to stop with me. I've got 2 or 3 cars I have to look at as I leave, and we're going to stop and look at these cars. So I said, okay. Also, he didn't tell me that he had to take his cat along. The cat was going to freeze in the house if we didn't take the cat with us. This is cold this time of the year on the Outer Banks. If any of you know, it really gets cold down there during the winter. So I agreed. We got in the car with Joe, started up the road. Actually, it was a little truck, a real small truck. And I'm talking small, really small. We can barely fit in there. I'm nice, I sit in the center. I put my friend Alan at the outside door and Joe in the driver's seat. So we start down the road. Everything's going well, except Joe's reaching over between my legs, shifting gears. Makes me real uncomfortable. This isn't starting out well. So we start up the road. We go to Kitty Hawk, a little ways up the road from Buxton where we were at. And there's a camera store that he says he can drop Alan and me off at, and we can browse a little while he goes and works on the first car. I explained to him that I'm not real comfortable with that because I've just met you a few hours ago, Joe, and we've probably got $10,000 worth of camera equipment in the back of your little truck. And so he's nice with that. So I tell him we'll drop Alan off at the camera store, and I'll ride with him out to take a look at the first vehicle. We get out to the first house. It's two young ladies in an apartment. The car's sitting out front, won't crank. And they tell us kind of what's going on. Joe starts looking for electronic problems, little modules and things that have went out. And I'm helping him. I'm pretty mechanically inclined myself. And after working on it a little bit, I kind of figure out that it's just out of gas. So we get some gas, get the car started. This is going well, I think. So look around. Where is the cat? The cat has gotten out of the truck, climbed a tree, and won't come down. Joe says, I'll get the cat, and starts up the tree. And I'm standing there dumbfounded, you know, this is strange. He's climbing the tree to get the cat. He says, take my truck, go on back to the camera store, pick up your friend Alan, and come back and get me. So I say, okay. I jump in the truck, ride out the road to the camera store. Alan comes out, sees me sitting in the cab by myself. He says, where's Joe? And I said, well, get in the truck, Alan. We've got transportation now. I killed Joe. He looks at me and doesn't know what to say. So we get back in the truck, start back up the road, and stop at another place, look at another car. We eventually get well on our way up the road. Joe's kind of like me. He likes some fresh air while he's driving, and he won't roll his window up. Alan and I are sitting over on the other side, and we're about to freeze to death. It's cold. I mean, it is really bitterly cold. And I've mentioned several times in a as witticism of way as I can to get him to roll the window up, but he just won't do it. So we're freezing, going up the road. The cat's, I've got my arm around Alan. That's the only way I can fit in the truck. And I think Alan and the cat laying on top of my arm are the only things that are keeping me warm. But we go on up the road, finally make it to Newport News, pick up our car. We have to walk about a half mile to get the car, and it's both uphill both ways. In the snow. No, it's not in the snow. But we make it home for my daughter's 14th birthday, and she's just great. She's happy and really tickled that we made it back. But that's just what can go wrong when you make a trip like that. Thank you.